So I get into the closet and I see this onesie, and it was supposed to be, because our first loss, our baby, we're pretty certain he was a boy, right? And so it was supposed to be for him. And I just broke down on the floor and I cried, right? And then so I had this other moment in Kansas City, fast forward, a couple years after that, and I'm sitting in the shower and I'm wondering, there's a lot of generational curses in my family. There's a lot of things in my family and lots of, just trauma and things like that. Maybe God doesn't want me to have children. Maybe God wants to stop. I'm one brother of two sisters, right? Maybe he wants to stop this here. Noah, Moses, and David speak to me so much because Noah saw something that nobody else could see, and was probably seemed like a crazy person. We know everybody thought he was crazy because he saw what was coming. And there's another part of that too in Revelation where it says that in the end times it will be like the times of Noah. And I think Noah lived in really scary, uncertain times. Moses was, the scholars say he had a speech impediment. He wasn't the most qualified person for the job, right? And you've heard it said, God does. What's that?
I said, but he was called.
Absolutely, he doesn't call the qualified; he qualifies the called. And Moses was chosen to go and basically be an icebreaker. Again, somebody who, man, that guy's crazy, just a wild man, right? And then if we look at David being just a boy when he fought Goliath, one side would say, I got a lot of illusions of grandeur. As I pull meaning from these men's stories, but those are the stories that have resonated with me in the hardest times of my life, and understanding how those men acted under pressure. And again, they didn't become the men of renown instantaneously. Yeah. They were resistant. You just look at it. It's like Moses was like, nope, not me. Nope. Just want to go back. This sucks. David, and there's numerous times where those guys tried to walk away from God's calling, but God just he's like, nope. Get back over here.
I feel that Moses part because the leader that he is, I feel purpose to lead like that, but I jump back and be like, nah, you go. Put somebody better. There's somebody better qualified than it. I've just recently started being more like, nah, it's me. It's me. I'm supposed to do that.
So here's the word for that too. And I don't know if anyone's ever told you this or if you've read it, diving into Moses and who he was. He spent so much time with God that his skin glowed. And when he died, Satan came for his bones.
Nah, I didn't know that.
Why was Satan looking for the bones of Moses? I believe it's Michael, actually, who got tussled up with him. Now, I need to go back and I need to look, but I know there was an angel that was guarding Moses' tomb. And why did it say that they argued over the bones of Moses? I don't know. Maybe that's for you to look up, man. But that's the wild part to me, too, is that even as Moses continued to lead and how the people rebelled and tried to go back to their own ways, he's sitting there trying to talk to God. God, what do I do? What do I do? He's trying to deal with Aaron, all this other stuff. But man, I don't know. When I see what you do with this show and I see how you bring this out of people, I'm like, it makes sense to me.
Appreciate you. Going back to Noah. I'm imagining when you say he's seen it come, he's seen the storm coming. So when we talk about storms and you connecting Noah to you, what does that storm look like?
I've always believed if you're not in a storm, you're on your way out of one or into one. You know, like, if times are good right now, brace for impact. Don't live your life with your butt puckered, bracing for impact all the time, because then that's worrying. Don't be such a prepper
Yeah, I like it.
that you're always waiting for it to come, and it comes years later, and you alienate everybody else in your life. You don't want to freak people out. But as far as the storm goes, man, without going too nuts and breaking it down on every level, my wife and I, being married for 20 years now, since we were kids, we've been through so many storms together, and we've had to go to the ark. Sometimes we got caught, we got without an ark, or it seemed we didn't have an ark, but
Break that
God
down
sent
when you
his
say
people.
without an ark.
Hmm?
When you say without an ark, what you mean?
So, Moses spent time, I can't remember how many years, was it a couple hundred years, building the ark, preparing for the storm. And then it was ready.
Noah.
Yeah, Noah. Yeah. And his sons and anybody else who would help, right? And so when the storm came, he was like, all right, let's close the doors. Let's go. And for as crazy as the Russell Crowe Noah movie is, like, I feel like that whole situation when you see this giant square box just start to float, it's like, and they're going to be okay. When I got laid off in 2023 with 2 weeks pay, I didn't have an arc. I didn't have a financial arc, man. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have a business. I didn't have a podcast. I wasn't ready. And I was living with my identity in my job too. So when that ends, and that's my other word to men out there who put their identity in all these things that maybe they own or status. Who are you when that's stripped from you? Who are you? Right? And so we got caught without an ark, or so I thought, because the dudes in my church network came together, families in our church network. Hey man, can we help you pay your mortgage for a couple months? Can we send you some food? Can we get you a grocery delivery? And so maybe they were our ark, right? Like, it was our network of people.
Those relationships you built.
For hard times, bro. In hard times.
You didn't even know that you were building the ark with those people, but being the person that you were in front of those people without knowing, organically, that was your ark.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You okay?
I promise you, man. I know it's there. Hey, I'll grab it when I'm ready, dog. Yeah.
You okay? No, I didn't mean it. I did mean to interrupt because I needed you to know that's your arc right there.
Yeah.
But from what I feel, from what you're saying, so you prepared it. You just didn't know you was preparing it.
That's right.
That's hard. Yeah. That's hard.
Thank you.
So, the hardest part going through that, not knowing that you actually had an arc. We removing that now that you know you have an arc, but the hardest part of going through that.
The feeling that I could not provide for my family. The feeling that it was embarrassing to say I needed money. It was, we men put so much, and this is the way God made us too. So I don't want to say that when we do this, we go against his plan or his design, but we put so much of that stock in being protector, provider, presider, right? And our families are part of our dominion, right? It's what the people and the resources God gave us. And I had to figure out where my worth truly was, and why, when money literally fell out of the sky or out of people's generosity, or when we sold something, or the repair on the water heater could be fixed by a $30 part that I had to put sweat equity into for 6 hours fixing this burner. One example, I got 8 more months on the water heater for $30. Like, just little moments of mercy like that from the Lord. Just knowing that, like, I didn't have like the cool job anymore. The manager, I wasn't a manager. I wasn't leading, even though, again, like, I'm a leader wherever I go. I'm a leader in my household. That's the other thing too. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. Like, When we wake up every day, it's like, okay, I'm responsible for leading myself and those who are put in my care. And so that was really hard on me, man. I mean, it was really hard.
Do you think being the protector and all of those things also come with admitting that you're low at this point?
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
How do you mean?
protection actually comes in a form of like acknowledging, I don't know what the fuck to do
Oh, right.
right now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And because without doing that, nobody knows. So you can't actually protect because you're going through your own thing in your head. So do you think we be beating ourselves up? I mean, we're messing ourselves up more by not like acknowledging and not accepting that help. And you know,
Yes, sir. Being a man, we don't like outsourcing our protection, our financial freedom, all that stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, I don't ask my neighbor to guard my house throughout the night while I sleep.
Right.
I'm the protector of my house. I don't ask my friends for money to pay my bills because they're my responsibility to pay. But when we can't do that, or, you know, we're going through something and we just can't come through, opening our hand, right, to allow others to come in and help us, that is the biggest protection, the biggest provision. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So I get your point. Yeah. And I'd never thought about it like that before.
Oh, I'm the same. I'm the same way, but like talking to you is just helping me like kind of realize some things, you know, because we both men of God, and we as we know, He put us here for togetherness, and you can't be together if you get
We're
me.
built for community.
And it's still hard. It's still hard to. I was watching. I don't know if you know what Martin is.
Yes,
The
sir.
sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
Or did you actually watch it though?
A little bit.
Okay.
It was that Power Rangers, Family Ties, Married with Children.
I love Married with Children. I love Married with Children.
I do too.
So one thing that scarred me in that manner, watching Martin, and I love Martin, entertainment.
Right.
It was an episode where Martin, I think he lost his job or whatever, and he couldn't, but his wife needed some money. He couldn't afford to give it to her. So his best friend lent her some money or whatever. And somehow his best friend got it to him that he lent her some money, and he was upset.
Yep.
He was like, I don't care if I don't ask nobody else for money. Now they gonna think they got something over you and over me type deal. So
Right.
that scarred me in a way to where like, I don't ever want to ask nobody for no help. I'm not saying that was the only thing that did it,
Right.
but like that really stood out because it's on a world platform. So I can get like with those type of examples why we're like we are when it comes to being a man.
Absolutely.
You got children?
Yes, sir. Got 2 daughters.
2 daughters?
I'm a girl dad.
What's that like?
It's amazing. I mean, it's they're young right now, so you know, I don't have boundaries on what I teach them and what I don't teach them. So they're learning how to dance. They're also learning how to swing a hammer. You know, I'll teach them how to hunt, fish. You know, do all those things. Work with tools. I'm big on STEM. You know, science, technology, math, engineering. So that's the fun stuff. I think the thing that when you ask how it is, the thing that's trying right now, like, or a trial is, you know, because I'm working full time. I got the podcast, you know, finding time to be with them as well. My wife also works full time too. So we've started to feel a little bit of guilt that we can't be around them as much anymore. Cause you know, when they're little, you're there with them so much, so often. And they're starting to say, oh, I miss you, Mom. I miss you, Dad, you know, cause my wife teaches on certain nights and things like that. And so that's one of the things that I'm going through right now as a dad is I'm trying to figure out how to make that quality time when we have it. And so if I'm taking them home from school, that's our time to talk, or, listen to their music or whatever it is and bond with them. And so I'm trying to find ways that I maximize my quality with them. You know, I don't want to make it sound like a job. I mean, my job is to love my kids, provide for them. I also believe too, they're not my kids. They're God's kids. I got them for a minute, and my job is to prepare them for this world. So when they get older, they know how a man's supposed to treat them. They know how to defend themselves. They know how to take care of themselves. They have failed and learned in a safe environment enough to go out to the world and thrive in it. You know, that's kind of my number one thing, you know. Came up on another show I was on, but I feel like my response to this type of question was pretty hard. And it was like, you know, my job isn't to be my kid's best friend. It's to prepare them for the world, you know. And then one of my buddies kind of checked me in a loving manner and said, you know, also to remember, you got to be tender with your daughters, you know, and you got to be soft-hearted with them too, you know. And so that's another thing that I'm working on as well.
And why do you believe it? You're not supposed to be their best friend.
I guess that's my my perception of how previous generations. So, and I realize I might be kind of throwing my mom under the bus right now. Mom, I'm not doing that. Trust me. But I feel like sometimes people, when they become parents, they're trying to make up for maybe the way their relationship was with their parents. They're trying to be so close to their kids that like the kids can't do any wrong, or discipline kind of flies out the window, or like little small things are checked, like just like, oh yeah, that's okay, that's not a big deal, because it's more of like I want you to like me, like I'm your parent and I want you to like me. And it's funny, as we're talking about it, it's like I don't really know where that came from.
When you look at your best friends in your life, do you want them to hold you accountable?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do with your children?
I hold them accountable. And I've been asking them too to hold me accountable. You know, if I tell you while I'm editing, I'll be up in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's 10 minutes and I'm not up there. Come down here, you know? Yeah.
As a best friend and as what you want from a best friend, you want the truth. You want them to not lead you in the wrong direction from as far as they know. You expect all of that out of your friend. Love, loyalty, all of that, protection, all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do you do with your kids?
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah, all of that. All of that, man.
So I think wording is important when your kids hear that stuff, you know, because it was important with us. We didn't know it was. We didn't realize it was, but there's certain things that stick to us for a reason.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you say, and I've said this before, when you say, I'm not your best friend, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent, well, that's going to last on me now. I don't need to give you this information that is bothering me because you don't know, you don't think it's significant enough to deal with. So I'll talk to somebody who can't lead me in the right direction, but I don't know they can't lead me in the right direction. I'll just go over there with the person who's saying they're my best friend.
That's right.
Now I'm going to sneak off and do stuff that they lead me to do and all of that. Versus you just being my best friend, letting me know, hey, I'm your best friend and your father. I'm going to always protect you. I'm going to always lead you, but I'm going to always be here to hear you. Always be here to hear you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because that's another thing that I'm prone to is black and white, binary thought, like pick it, go, make a decision. And when I operate in the gray, when people ask me, like, for example, in professional life, like, what type of leader are you? And I say, I'm the leader that I need to be at the moment that I need to be it. And people don't like that because I take the third way, right? Like if we're talking about Jesus and all the situations he was in, he always took the third way. He was like, oh, you want it? Yes or no? Hey, what about this? And so for me, I love how you just lovingly checked me on that.
Oh.
You know, and in that example, because I think the fact that you're able to get into the psychology too of the child being raised, being told that and say, okay, well, you know what? Then when stuff gets real, I'll remember you're not my friend. You're my parent. So I'll go to my friend. And the friend who could be less mature, less well-informed, definitely doesn't know them as well as the parent knows them, doesn't have the resources to help them in the parent that, the way the parent possibly can, or whatever it is, if we assume like as a parent, like, they want what's best for the kid. Right. So yeah, I
Or
appreciate
they do
that.
know them a little better than the parent do, because again, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And,
Yeah.
and we get to these points as parents, and why? Why would you do that? I didn't raise you to do that. You never talked to me. I never had access to you in that manner. Yeah, you bought me gifts. Yeah, you taught me about men or whatever. But like, if men are like this, you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
picking up what you're putting down, dude.
You got a lot of those, what they call idioms.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I use them. I use them to remember when stuff gets tough.
Yeah.
Stuff gets tough. See, I did it again. It just comes out, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I want to go back. I know, because we got off a little bit.
Sure.
I want to go back to your wife and you, and the struggles y'all was having before, because you had some information you wanted to give us.
Yeah. So just on infertility, I'm actually glad that this topic has been coming up more and more on a national level. And I think recently with like, especially Andrew Schultz going on Club Shay Shay, going on Joe Rogan, going on these shows to say like, hey, here's what I went through and here's what I did. I heard him talking about it the other day. I sent it to my wife because we went through 9 years of infertility. Okay. And so just to rewind, okay, when we got married, we were in premarital counseling. And in premarital counseling, that's where, they say, hey, Stephanie, my wife, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself, 3 years? It's kind of almost like a marriage job interview in a way, except you've already committed to getting married. Michael, where are you at? Where are your goals? And one thing that came up in that was adoption. My wife says, I'd like to adopt one day. I'd have kids of my own, but I'd like to adopt. And I literally said something to the effect of, there's no way. Like, I'm going to go through an adoption process. I'm not going to adopt. Like, having my own kids will be enough, right? And it was a big sticking point for us in our premarital counseling. And our counselor, Carlos, he had said, he goes, hey, man, you're going to have to pray about this. He goes, the look on her face when you said that, I'm telling you right now, that's going to come up, dude. I've counseled a lot of people, all this. So anyway, we start to try to have kids. We're 9 years. I say 11 years of infertility. Stephanie says 9. I don't know where I get the 2 years, but basically my heart starts to break for what breaks God's heart. That's what I tell people. Like and that's the thing, is when you get closer to God, his cause becomes your cause, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I just believe, like, we're not trying to get God to come into our storyline plot. Like, he's inviting us into his, and he says, I have a story that I am telling. I am using you in your blink of an eye that you're here. And so I start considering adoption, because I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to have kids. And so we get certified. This is when we live in California. And for anybody watching who's been through a foster or adoption certification process, it's very invasive. They come in, they do a profile on your home. They do a psychological profile. At the time I drank, I'm actually 8 years sober from alcohol now. But at the time I was drinking, how many beers do you drink, Michael? I had decorative swords in my office in the house, like the Braveheart sword, right? The Scottish Claymore. And I had Anduril, which is from Lord of the Rings. And they said, you need to put a lock on that door because a kid could come in and hurt themselves with the sword. And I'm just like, oh. Put fire extinguishers out, like all these things. So you go through this whole thing to get certified. And then we were what's called concurrent, where we could get a call. Well, first, before we did that, we then had a shower for a baby who we didn't know we were going to have a baby. But this is something common in foster and adoption families. Like, we don't know who's going to be in this house, but we got the room ready. We got the crib ready. We're going to gather everybody around. People prayed, all this. And then we get calls from social workers. They'd say, hey, have a baby who was literally just born 3 days ago. Mom's in no condition to take care of the baby. There's no one else in the family that can step in. Would you guys be willing to give baby a home? And we said yes to, I want to say 12 of those 18 calls we got. So like they tell you about the background and all that stuff. And we'd say, yeah, just come over tonight. We'd wait for the social worker until like 3 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes. The system in California is very bogged down, as a lot of resources are in California. And so long story short, we went 2 years just, trying to adopt. We were certified, and then the agency came to us and they said, hey, do you want to recertify? And I told Stephanie, I was like, I'm tired of this stuff. And long story short, we were also kind of tired of our living situation in California. We moved to Kansas City in 2015. So we just hit 10 years being here. And we were starting to look into adoption agencies because we were still struggling. And I remember thinking in the shower one day, and this is after a couple of other breakdowns. Like when I was packing up the house to California, I saw a camouflage onesie that one of our friends gave us for an adoption for a baby. And it was in the closet. I was in the room. I was by myself. My wife was living out here. She got a job first because we sold our house real quick. But I basically wrapped up the last 40 days in California, and I'm cleaning up the house, packing, and I saved the baby's room for last because I knew it was going to be traumatic, right? I didn't want to go in there. I didn't want to unbolt the crib only to pack it up and move it to Kansas City, right? So I get into the closet and I see this onesie, and it was supposed to be, because our first loss, our baby, we're pretty certain he was a boy, right? And so it was supposed to be for him. Mm-hmm. And I just broke down on the floor and I cried, right? And then so I had this other moment in Kansas City, fast forward, a couple years after that, and I'm sitting in the shower and I'm wondering, there's a lot of generational curses in my family. There's a lot of things in my family, and lots of, just trauma and things like that. Maybe God doesn't want me to have children. Maybe God wants to stop. I'm one brother or two sisters, right? Maybe he wants to stop this here with me. That's how bad it got, dude. That's how dark it got. Was like, I started to believe like maybe God was preventing this because he didn't want me to be a dad. I mean, I'm like, God, I tried to adopt. I tried to be a foster dad. I tried to be an adoptive father. Wouldn't let me do that. Couldn't do that. Now I'm trying. I'm quitting drinking. I'm taking care of myself. I'm being healthy. Still can't figure it out. You just tell me, right? And then somehow we got pregnant with who is now my 7-year-old daughter. Had a couple losses between her and my 5-year-old, but we get to be parents now, and the thing I guess I just wanted to say was there's this principle it's called logotherapy. It was authored by Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Mm-hmm. He lived in concentration camps in Germany. One of the most profound experiences he had was he was on the train going to a concentration camp, and they were driving by a school he went to when he was a kid, and he saw the basketball courts and all this. But he's kind of the father of logotherapy, which is man's purpose. I guess we want to find purpose in our life and in our struggles. And we try to reinterpret things we've been through. And I can tell you right now, I still don't know why we went through that. I can't say like, oh, well, it's made me a better dad, because I've had plenty of weak moments as a father. I've had plenty of moments where I stumbled and, I've had issues, but I guess I kind of lost my point there. I think it's important that men talk about this stuff because there's so many resources for women. And when was the last time you saw a support group for men whose wife had a miscarriage? Yeah. And the struggles that go through that, like, am I a man enough? Like Andrew Soltz, he's talked about like, his sperm count and all this stuff, and like questioning his manhood and, all these things. And I just, again, man, I guess there's this thing in me when things go wrong, I would tend to go to, oh, it must mean that like, because I'm bad or not fit for this, or I'm unworthy. Mm-hmm. And so I think God's been continuously trying to get my attention. He's been continuously trying to get my attention. Being here alone is him trying to tell me, I've chosen you for a purpose. People care about your story. People care about your journey. And I'm going to bless somebody, one person, even if one person, through your story and what you've been through. So,
And you're right. We don't have these, and I never really heard nobody say that from that the men needing to talk about what they go through the miscarriage. And I need to watch that too with Club Shay Shay. I didn't know he went
I
on Club
haven't
Shay
seen
Shay.
the Shay Shay one yet. It just dropped 2 days
Okay.
ago, dude. Yeah.
Andrew, one of my favorite like personalities, period. So
Great.
going back to walking past a room though, like I'm not talking about when you were moving, when you're waiting through the process, walking past a room that you had set up for this potential baby you would have. There's probably excitement in putting it together and believing that it's
time.
going to happen, but
Big
days
time.
in, days out, you're walking past this room. What is that like? Can you think of any moments when you were going to pee or something and just walk past the room and like,
Yeah.
yo, what's that breakdown like?
There were months where I would not walk past it on purpose. There were mornings where I would walk past it to get to my office. There were some times where I literally would walk out the front of the house and my office had a side door and I'd go in the side door because I didn't want to walk by that room. Sometimes I walk by the room and I'd go someday. Someday that light will be on. There'll be laughter coming out of there. Or there'll be an ouchie that they got and I got to run to that room. That, those visions, you just envision it. And then there were days where I just didn't want to be around it. It felt like there was just kind of I don't want to say a darkness, but just a heaviness there. Like that was a statue of our dreams that hadn't yet come to be, one time it occurred to me like I should go in there and dust. I should go dust the crib because nothing's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just stuff like that, man. Just stuff like that.
Sometimes more inner issues and traumas like create fights within the relationship that we don't even know we're having. You know what I'm saying? We don't even know what we're going through is really causing me to take something out on you that you don't deserve. Can you remember some times where it may have like interfered in the marriage a little bit and y'all really had to hold strong?
Oh yeah. Yeah, pressure to like I'll just be real. I don't think she'd mind this, but like with my wife, like if she was like, on cycle, like pressure to, have intercourse, right? It's like, cause this is the time, right? Pressure to, just belief, hope, sometimes being hopeless, like when one person is so in despair and the other one is like really close to that level and there's no way to like, they're in the hole, like you're both in the hole together, the deep dark hole, and you don't have anyone to pull you out. Someone's got to figure out a way to pull the other one out. And some days that was my wife who was, in the depths of depression, especially when we'd have a loss. And some days that was me of like, why don't we just give up on this whole thing? Why don't we just reconcile that like we're never going to be parents and we should maybe just start figuring out what our life would look like without kids. We could be the cool godparents. We could be the babysitters. Like we could find a way to help raise kids without being parents. Because for me, being a problem solver, and that's what we try to do in our marriages all the time, right? Most of the time, wife has a problem, like, I got to fix it. And it's like they want us to listen, and be there for them. And there's a lot of strain. I know my wife too. She could probably recall some of these things like it was yesterday, but like, it just.
They recall very well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds like those the devil starts to play. Bang. Bang. Batman. Break your back. Take you down to that cave. And a lot of people haven't been able to climb up out of this cave. we're gonna say you and your wife are playing what's his Bruce Wayne
Bruce Wayne, yeah.
down in his cave. How did y'all start to climb up out of that darkness?
Mm,
With a broken back, with a broken whatever else they broke on them within the
yeah.
marriage, you know?
Yeah, for me, I knew a lot of work had to be done in myself, a lot of deeply held beliefs. And you know what word is in the middle of belief, right?
No.
Lie.
Lie. I wasn't gonna get it right.
Lie.
Okay.
And
Talk to me.
sometimes the things we believe, these deeply held beliefs, sometimes they're lies that we agreed with.
That's fire.
and
Okay, go ahead.
and we got to understand that like we might be incorrect in our assessment of the situation, the universe, who we are, who we stand in. And that's another thing that I feel like God is constantly trying to remind us and me, like, dude, I didn't build you for this. You're going over here, just messing around. This is not what I created you for. So often, like if you've tried to diminish yourself or make yourself smaller in certain situations, that doesn't serve you well or anyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to work on a lot of deeply held beliefs. I also had to work on like, I was a drinker and I wanted to escape. And man, everybody's got an addiction, okay? Everybody's got something that they're addicted to medicate a wound or a hole or something that addiction cannot fix. And I can't give you the secret sauce formula or anything like that, but all I got to say is if we do not do the deep work within ourselves, there are things that they could destroy us, right? And so I had to go back to when there was trauma in my marriage, what part of that was me, right? And what part of my own internal warfare did I need to figure out? And that's where I kind of landed on this principle I call spiritual violence. And it's funny, like we talked about the armor of God.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there armor of God? It's because sometimes life is war, right? Battle. It says in Psalms, Lord, prepare my finger for battle and my hands for war. There is a spiritual aspect. And that's where I started to kind of turn and say, okay, there's an enemy. It says he's prowling around like a lion, right? He seeks for someone to devour. Maybe he's the one who doesn't want me to have kids. Maybe he's the one who wants me to be an alcoholic the rest of my life. Maybe he's the one, or his generals or whoever, right? Because I do believe there's a structure that, it says the legions of hell are a third of, basically escapees or defectors from heaven, right? So there's got to be some sort of structure there. But I started to challenge the deeply held beliefs, started to eliminate things that didn't serve me, like the drinking, McDonald's, right? So like I used to be I was pushing 300 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was very unhealthy. And, there's this concept in hunting of game trails. Like you can see where the rabbits are because you can look through the bushes and that's where they run. Well, as a person, I had game trails as well. And it was the same path to work every day, go to the McDonald's, and eat the McDonald's and find those things. Feels like I'm getting off point here, but at the same time, I'm telling you, there's deep work that I had to do versus going to my wife and saying she's the problem. Mm-hmm. She's the problem. She just doesn't get it. She just doesn't get it. And that doesn't work. That's never going to work. And so that's where a lot of that personal responsibility comes in. And I basically, and she'll tell you the same thing. She's like, I just started working on myself and my relationship with God, praying that my husband would come along, and thankfully that's been like the theme of our marriage through all the infertility, all the loss, the pain, as we go to God, we're rooted in Jesus. So,
And I see you, the lion, knocking down the giants of the alcohol and all of that stuff.
yeah,
That's David. That's David part.
because we didn't talk about David yet.
That's David right there. But a little more in Noah with the storm. What got you to grab that temporary medication? What was that moment that got you to grab that bottle?
Yeah.
And why the bottle?
Yeah, well, the bottle was a big part of that was just family and friends growing up because I saw it. You know, I think that's really common in addictions. People will go to things that look very familiar,
Yeah.
and so I'd see that. I never understood why I'd go to parties like or birthday parties, and all the adults would be drinking, getting smashed. Man, it's like I never connected those dots until I got older. I was like, man, okay, well, there's probably a lot of components there. They're like, okay, this is the only time we get to drink. Hey, everybody else is doing it. Hey, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to let go, let loose, right? Hey, my kids are playing with other kids. I don't got to watch them right now. There's a lot of things there, but I think realistically, like, there's more alcoholics in the world than not, right? Like, there's a lot of people. You ever notice when you talk to somebody and they go, I drink, but I don't drink too much. They'll always like kind of hit.
Sure.
They want to make sure that they just drink a little bit. They're
sure.
really responsible drinker, And it's like I always wondered about that. Again, no shame, no accusation, anything like that. I'm not gonna. I have friends who drink. I got family members who drink, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was very familiar. And then there's that just getting gone feeling of like, I'm not here anymore. I don't think about how much it sucks. It's just life sucks right now, and I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to face it. And yeah, enough of that. And then all of a sudden, it's like I go to the doctor, and he's like, you're morbidly obese, you're A1C, you're pre-diabetic. He's like, technically, I could call you diabetic right now. He goes, and I could put you in the hospital because your heart rate is 180 over 140, whatever it was, But I would say to answer your question, just to get right down to the point, it was to fill a hole that only Jesus could fill. And also, there's another aspect with quitting things. So many times people are like, I'm just going to quit. And the reason why it doesn't work is because there's this concept of you got to embrace something new to replace. Embrace and replace. So replace alcohol with, I'm going to do something else. Or when I get a temptation to go drink, I'm going to go do something else. The Bible says if you resist the enemy, he flees, right? Yeah. So you just, replacing that. So I just started figuring out, I won't get into all the hacks that I did, but it was like read a book, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to call a friend, or I'm going to call my wife, or, whatever it is, but embrace to replace.
Yeah. A lot of times we get into these addiction by curiosity at first. But then it starts to become the medication. Once you realize it takes you to a place you've never been. And that's why they say you're always chasing that first high, that first feeling or whatever.
Right.
Because it takes you, damn, I like it here. I ain't never been here before, or I haven't felt this in a long time.
Yep.
And I know through what I'm going through in life, I will never get there. So let me just medicate and get away.
That's it.
Yeah. So
agreeing. I'll never just let it die. Yeah. It's easier to give up, right? Living's hard, dying's easy, right?
Living's hard, dying's easy. Living's hard, dying easy. Dying to yourself is not easy though. It's not easy, and that's what you did within your relationship. You started to die a little bit to yourself, like because you could have been blaming, like that, and that's how y'all started to build up. So maybe that dying started creating that ladder to where you can y'all marriage could actually start to live. Live more.
And I lost my point a little bit with the spiritual violence. I started becoming a prayer warrior. Okay, so like that's where I come full circle with spiritual violence. It's like I'm asking the kingdom of heaven to do war on my enemy, right? And that also translates into physical life too. Like we talked about, something to the effect of turning the other cheek, right? Yeah. Or letting conflict go, saying I'm big enough to not respond, or I'm going to respond in a better way, right? And it's just like, okay, I'm going to ask God to literally fight my battles. Like I'm going to invite God into this, and I'm going to be transparent with other men, right? So, yeah.
And you earlier you touched on like, I don't know exactly what you said, but kind of failing as a parent, as a father, in moments like you had your moments of failure, or maybe you didn't use the word failure, but you said something around that. What did that look like? Like those moments where you're like, oh, I can do.
Mm. Well, I feel like when I got laid off, I felt like a failure because I couldn't provide, because we had to stop doing a lot of things for the kids, like horse riding lessons. And that's when I stopped jujitsu. And there's a lot of things that had to end. And the kids, they see their friends doing all these things like summer camp, things like that. And they couldn't do that, right? So I saw that during COVID. That was really hard too, man. My youngest was born 2 months before that popped off. And my wife had just started a new job, and so our house was a mess, man. Like lots of stress. Like I think a lot of people, man, when they first announced that was happening, I mean, that was a scary time. And thinking about it, talking about it too, it's like I don't know what I could have done differently, but just feeling again, it was that concept of feeling like I got right, like I didn't have an arc. I don't know. Sorry, I'm struggling to.
So you never really embraced being in COVID. I know.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Figuring it out through there and really like being in. Okay, so this is fucked up what we're going through in the world, but I get to be with y'all a little more.
I did. Yeah, I did, man. Yeah,
you did.
I definitely did.
So
yeah.
That had to grow y'all relationship more.
It did, dude. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, way more. I mean, I'm thinking of a video right now that my girls have been asking me to comb my hair. But I've got all the product in my hair lately. And I told them this weekend, I was like, I'm going to let you do it. And it comes from when we went through COVID, my hair grew out really long because no barbers were taking people. And so I was like a wild man. And there's this video where my 7-year-old, she was 3 at the time, and she's just brushing and combing my hair, just talking like crazy. And I've just got the camera on, and that's a beautiful moment from that time. And yeah,
you got to send us that video.
I will find it and I'll send it to you, man. Yeah.
So so that's about, like, how we always talk about half full, half empty type deal. Looking at the cup, like, I'm sure now that you're probably in your Moses stage, you know how to look at that like that. Like, okay, now I'm here to be a leader. So how do I start looking at? Because it's hard to lead when everything is half empty. Because you're negative all the time about everything. Yeah. So you can't lead people half empty. So you got to embrace these moments and show them how we make good in these moments.
Absolutely.
And go forward. So, oh wait, did I miss something as far as like once you had your child though? After y'all ended up having the youngest, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, when we came out of infertility.
Yeah. How was that?
It was amazing, man. It was amazing because we were parents, My wife tells her story a bit because she finally got to become a mom. And then she went through postpartum depression, and, then she had the guilt associated with that. For me, it was definitely an adjustment, right? Because I was established in my job, and then it was all of a sudden, hey, I got to take some more time, and so I had to make sure I checked that identity. Like I said before, I get my identity in my job, right? Like that's where I was at. And so if I couldn't be there, it was like, okay, well now there's somebody who's more important than this job. So there was a great reprioritization. So I went through that whole process. And that, now that I've gotten to know more parents with, that I work with and have kids like that are my age, that's been really cool having that camaraderie with them, and like next week is spring break. So like a lot of parents are they're working from home or they're taking time off to be with their littles. And so it was great to finally have that, like, and not be the childless people at the birthday parties, right? Because we watched all our friends have kids and watch their kids grow older. And like, we were the ones like, like there was literally, I think there was a family that purposefully didn't invite us to the birthday party because they thought we would be sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what families going through infertility go through. But But I would say, yeah, the Lord is still doing a stripping down of my selfishness in this process. I'd love to say that I've arrived as a dad, but we never arrive. We're always becoming, right? So it's like I have to be
Always.
good with that journey,
Yeah.
saying, okay, Lord, you're going to continue to refine me. I'm going to continue to put their needs over mine, figure it out, just to be a good dad.
And understand you got closer with them during the COVID time, but once you got out of COVID, was it completely snatched away from them, and you're back to
Mm,
this? So that balance of like, I still got to give you this because I gave you a little taste of it too. You know what I'm saying? For this amount, so I can't completely take this away from you and just go straight business.
right.
Can't make they shouldn't have to always understand that because we're late to our purpose. Like, we just got to do a little more. Like, me and Darren be sitting on 1 hour of sleep because we know, like, I know I have to still date my wife. I know I have to, and I can do better. I know I have to still do these little things that I don't always necessarily want to do with my kids, but I still have to do that fine time with them and still do purpose. So you that's the beating and purpose. Like, you got to sacrifice time. You got to get beat up a little bit with sleep, not having sleep,
The
and still
beating and
arrive,
purpose.
still be there. So, and then like that same thing that you got in COVID with your children actually translates well when you go into business. You start to operate in business a little more. It's not straight. I mean, it's not straight like, do this, do that. I need this done, need this done. You actually start to care about your employees and what they have to have going on because you got.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like true empathy, man. It's real. Like, it's like walking in other people's shoes, right? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
get that. And yeah, absolutely. And about like coming out of COVID, which obviously that whole period lasted so long, and there were companies that said, all right, butts in seats 5 days a week. I was grateful that I didn't work for any places at that time that were mandating those types of things. Like, we were able to keep
Mm-hmm.
like, a hybrid schedule or whatever, to still have that time with the kids. But, then they started going to school where it was like they're there all day. And so then by virtue of them growing up and becoming little humans, now they're missing us too. And so that's figuring it out. But what I tell them is, I was like, it's like life, you got to have a bullpen, of people. And I tell them, like, your teachers at school, they love you. They're taking care of you. They're investing in your development. They're basically like family, like they're part of this network of people that we've entrusted,
Mm-hmm.
and they're 7 and 5, so they don't get that whole concept yet. But I try to tell them, like, we have a tribe. We have a tribe of people that, they all do different things. And I tell my 7-year-old, I'm like, if you weren't so good at math, I would find a math tutor for you because I suck at math. And I'm not going to have the blind leading the blind, but I will find somebody who's
Yeah.
really good at that
Understood.
to come in
Yeah.
to help you. And then when you're good at it, they'll exit or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another part of being a parent too. You got to realize, like, you're not going to be able to cover all the bases. And so you've got to have a network of people. You have to have a tribe of people, whether that's your church network or people at the school or your neighbors. Your neighbors are absolutely part of that. And if they're not, they should be,
Yeah. Another thing you could do is, if you can't always make the time, when you do make the time, make it big though. So there's a time like when I'm not there like my wife is. My wife is at every school event, every field trip or whatever. But the field trip I went through, I made sure her friends loved me, and they said,
Yeah.
this is talk about since this second grade, and now she's in fourth grade, and she's like, yeah, my friends think I got the coolest parents ever, and I'm like, they talking about me too? They say, yeah, cause I'm like, that was in second grade. So when we went there, I like, sometimes, like you say, you the leader, you have to be in those moments. So I go there, like, naturally, I'm a sit back, chill dude or whatever, and not one. But when I'm with all those kids, I said, be a kid, Damo. So I start beating them up, letting them beat me up, but in a way that they know that I ain't.
Yeah.
The boys
Yeah.
wanted to be boys. They started asking, "Can you get sturdy?" And then they started, saying, "Can you get sturdy?" And I talk stuff to them. I'll kill you.
Yeah, you like
You
Sturdy's
can't-
my middle name,
yeah,
son.
yeah. And I'm trash at it, but you know what I'm saying? I'm better than them. So letting them all jump me and beat me up, and they remember that moment. She remembers that moment because it's big, and it made her big to her friends and stuff. So when you show up, if you can't be there 5 days a week, that 1 day a week, make it huge.
Yeah. That's I love how you talked about, I call it field tripping.
Field trip.
Because I just go out and I do the same thing. I put on the school shirt, and I just that be a kid thing. I've never said it like that, but that's essentially what I try to do. I try to get in. We went to Wonderscope a few weeks back, where they have all the basketball hoops and like the water jets, where you put the ball on the water jet, and it's like kind of like a science and math sort of center. And they got the outdoor area, with the big thing you can climb, and I'm up there climbing it with them, and that's how my daughters learned how to climb, was me doing it with them and showing them how. And it just dude, I love that when you show up big.
Yeah.
That's huge, man, because you can be present and not be there. You can be checked out too. And I've seen me do it, and that's another thing, dude, is my conviction. My conviction's telling me, as you say, when you show up big. And I go, man, there's times where I'm with them for 2 hours and I'm not even there. I got a book to read, or I gotta edit something, or I gotta, you know what I mean? So I'm already indelibly marked by this conversation. That's dude. Great. I'm already.
Those are just the things they remember, like those, and that's funny you said that, because I was like, leaving that indelible mark is that lasting thing. She's gonna remember that time forever. Well, it's starting to look like that because the way she brings it up or whatever. So, and that made me feel proud. So I'm like, I gotta do that more often, So leaving an indelible mark. I like that. Appreciate you.
I like it too, man.
Before we close out, I do want to know, is there anything else you wanted to get to the audience?
Oh man. I think it's important that people know. I'm really big about this. And this is why I'm really big about what you guys do.
Okay.
And what I do on my show as well is that we do not need to seek heroes that we'll never do life with. I think it's great to have people that we can look up to. But we've talked about the Bible. It's important to look at Noah and Joshua and Jacob and Moses and Jesus and Jesus as the number one, right, at their example. But when it comes to, like, for example, the people that I engage with on my show and my platform, people have never heard of some of these people. Some of them, it's their first time ever coming on the show. And that is built on the principle that the sages are local. And I've had people in my life that haven't written New York Times bestsellers, haven't been on TED Talks, and weren't, athletes or football stars or whoever, that made huge impacts in my life. And that came from developing deep relationships, right? Like, some relationships are like the Platte River. It's like a mile wide and an inch deep. Looking for that inch wide, mile deep connection with people. And I've lived in neighborhoods where back into the driveway and the garage door closes right as the front of the car is shutting, and neighbors don't talk to one another. So much meaning and purpose has come out of my life. We go back to COVID, when we were having those conversations on our front yard. And I was talking to so-and-so about how they were getting through things, or did they have toilet paper? That legitimately happened. I remember there was a toilet paper problem. Everybody was going to get toilet paper. But like just kind of looking at the circle that we have around us and finding the sages in our community, I feel like that's huge, man. And that's just what I mean, you guys, obviously you bring on some very epic people that are here,
Yeah.
and you have like life-changing conversations with them. And that's just the thing that I want to encourage more people to do, man. You know, and that's why I do what I do.
It's funny you brought up the being the heroes, because if you look at our YouTube description or whatever, it says seeing the regular human. I don't remember what I wrote up there. Seeing the regular human in our everyday heroes, and seeing the hero in our quote unquote regular humans. So, and the hero is still the hero when you become the regular human, though, because now we see that you bleed. That's why I like when Batman asks Superman, "Do you bleed?" or something, because now I can see that even though you bleed, it's possible for me to be like you, a hero. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You bleed just like me. But the crazy that you brought up heroes too, because earlier you were saying something, and it triggered. So I guess I'm supposed to ask you this. It triggered me to ask you, like, hero or villain, who do you connect with more and why?
Oh man. I think I connect most with the anti-hero or the vigilante.
Talk.
So I know I took the third path there.
Yeah. It's okay. Your path is your path.
I think I identify with the one who's capable of both. I believe to know joy, you need to know sorrow.
Mm.
I believe sometimes to become a good father, you have to have lived life as a terrible one. Or at least have the ability to reflect. Sometimes we can't model what good looks like, so we have to build it off of what good doesn't look like. And so if we're talking like supervillains, I don't identify with any supervillains, right? But I also don't identify with any superheroes, because they've got problems with that, right? Like if you look at even the arc of Superman, the writers, like he had moments where he was so powerful, and they even did this in the movies, right? Where it was like he got so full of himself, you know? And I feel like the villain and the superhero, I feel like their paths are so prescribed, but the anti-hero, like Venom, Deadpool, like I always loved Venom. Always loved drawing Venom when I was a kid. I got to meet one of the artists of Venom, Lethal Protector, which was the first time Marvel ever took Venom's arc into anti-hero. Where now he was kind of saving Spider-Man's ass a bit, you know? But if you ask me to choose or define who I am, like I'm kind of the anti-hero. I'm kind of, you know, a vigilante when it comes to knowledge and, you know, truth and things like that. And, you know, it's funny too, even in scripture, I had this in my notes, but like, you know, Jesus said, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. So I want you to be as innocent as doves and wise as serpents. And we got so many people out there thinking, I just need to be as innocent as a dove. And it's like, Jesus was literally telling you, be snake-like when it calls for it. And so you have to understand. I mean, you have to understand how a villain thinks.
Yeah.
You know, as a father too, like when we tell our kids to be safe, we look up where they're going. You go, okay, the lighting sucks in that area or whatever. It's like, there's no gas stations around there.
Yeah.
You know, we look out by understanding how a predator thinks, right? Or whatever it is, right? And we could also learn about, you know, how a hero thinks. You know, what kind of blind spots do heroes have, bro?
It's funny how it all connects.
Yeah.
Because this is Moses again. God in the wilderness was preparing them for war, for the land of milk and honey. They were in the wilderness preparing. They may have didn't know it, but they started preparing for war for their land of milk and honey. So there's no way you'll get to the land of milk and honey without being ready to fight for it. War.
Yeah. And everything worth having doesn't come without a fight, right?
Doesn't
Like
come without a fight.
I mean, and whatever the fight looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So
Before I close out, anything from y'all?
I'm doing,
Okay, got you. You want to leave us marked out?
absolutely.
All right, and then pray us out.
You got it. Jesus, thank
Take us
you
back.
so much for this time here with Keith, Darren, and Dominique. I thank you so much for what they are doing here. I pray that you would bless them tremendously with your favor on every level, Lord, socially, relationally, financially, spiritually,
Mm-hmm. Bring it on.
and that what you're doing in this room through these men would multiply according to your plan, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
Thank you so much for putting these men on this earth, in this time, in this moment, for this purpose. Of all the people that I could have met, of all the people that have cameras and do podcasts and all this stuff, to be here right now with these men and you is truly special, Lord. And it's not lost on me, and I know it's not lost on these men and their families who support them in doing this. They make a sacrifice for these men to do this. They believe in what these men are doing. And I just pray too, Father, that you would open all three of these men's eyes to the people that are supporting them right now. I don't know why I feel led to say that, but the people that are vocal and verbal and that are encouraging them, and that you would hold their attention captive on that and on you, Father. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Ditto. The goal is to leave a lasting imprint on their minds and their hearts. We pray you've been indelibly marked. Come on, man. Give me hugs. Appreciate you. It's a good prayer. We ain't never got a prayer fully focused on us.